this guy said, "Hi, you don't know me, but I'm a small YouTube that runs a news channel. When you spoke to Jeff Holiday, I criticized you in the comment section. A few people said I should try and sit down and talk with you. In promotion of that, if you have any interest in a discussion with someone generally on the right to discuss policy, feel free to drop me a line at your convenience." That's the guy. All right, good luck, boys. My dude, what's up?
Hey, man, how's it going?
I don't know. I'm about to find out. What are we talking about today?
Outline anything here, but
oh, real fast. I'm streaming, so don't say anything like personal or anything like that.
no worries.
Okay.
I was watching. For reference, I am Don of the Two Plebs channel for everyone who doesn't know me, which is everyone, and I am generally available to be your self-esteem bump and look dumb on your channel if you need me to.
Okay.
Anyway, that said, you made a lot of criticisms of basically everyone on the right while talking to Jeff, saying that you don't want to talk about the right never wants to talk policy. It's always like,
well, not necessarily the right, but like the skeptosphere on YouTube. But yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, we can go big, we can go small. Honestly, I don't know that many of your political positions outside of what you talked to Jeff about, and that's been 6 weeks. I did not rewatch it for this, so.
Gotcha. Well, what did I say to Jeff, I guess, that you, like, vehemently disagreed with?
You know, I don't even remember. It's sort of the problem. I should have rewatched the damn stream. But I don't know if there's a policy position that is currently tickling your fancy that you'd argue with somebody over. I'm available for that. If not, there's always the popular ones. We can, I don't know, guns, healthcare, whatever you like.
Well, fuck, I don't know. I thought, oh shit, I thought there was like a specific thing. I guess do you think Trump's doing a good job in office so far? How about that? Oof. So you're a little bit on the fence. So I think Trump has done probably one of the worst jobs, at least in my living lifetime, of president so far. So we can talk about anything Trump related, I guess. I'm just kind of curious.
Sure, man. Again, we can start with popular things. Should we start with the wall? I mean, it's the most popular Trump topic in the world.
Yeah, I guess it seems kind of a dumb idea, but
so I think the entire discussion with the wall comes down to: are you willing to pay the quantity of money that's going to be required for the wall to have a physical symbol of an idea? And if we are, then we should build it, and if we're not, then we shouldn't.
What is that? What is that symbol of an idea? What idea are we talking about? We don't like Mexicans, or?
Now, whether or not we're willing to, or whether or not we're going to harshly enforce immigration policies.
Why don't we have a wall between us and Canada?
You know, again, if we want a physical symbol of the idea, we probably should.
Okay, I guess like fiscally, so I'm kind of left leaning, but I'm kind of libertarian, or maybe not libertarian, but I believe in like fiscal responsibility. Building a wall to the north and south of our country to represent an idea seems like kind of a bad idea, I guess. That sounds like a lot of bureaucratic waste.
Seems absolutely fiscally ridiculous. Totally agreed. Again, the entire debate is either, and in all reality, in my opinion, this comes down to that we're fiscally ridiculous with everything. And so the pure and simple fact that it is going to cost a lot of money is almost never a consideration for the government engaging in a large project. So if we're going to do it, it's because we like the idea of having a physical wall that, by nature of it being there, says, no, you cannot just hop this border, or at least implies it to people who would be willing.
I guess this just sounds like one of the dumbest things of my life. I'm sorry. I guess like I mean, I guess philosophically, if you want to take the position that all government spending should be done for memes or whatever, then if we argue, if we establish that as our core axiomatic belief of government spending, that government spending should be focused around like what the best meme is, then from there we can start to argue whether or not establishing a meme wall would be like a responsible way to manage our government money. But without first accepting that, like, I'm sure you realize that this is a pretty untenable position, right? That like we need to spend a fuck ton of money not only building the wall, but also maintaining the wall, also pissing off our neighbors, and then having to staff the wall. That we should, and then add probably another government department or some shit to manage it, unless it falls under the DHS or I don't know, ICE. I don't know who would manage it. Like this is a lot of commitment for a meme, right? That's a pretty big commitment, right?
It's not a meme, though. And I mean, there is a pure and simple fact of the matter that people don't start wars with us because we have giant fucking military. So by nature of having a giant fucking military, it's, well, if we start a war with America, we got to contend with that thing, and I don't want to do it.
Well, I
And
think people
so
don't start
either
wars
we're
with us because we're separated by oceans, and we're not really. There's not many like huge wars going on right now. Like we had a big military when Japan attacked us, but they still bombed Pearl Harbor.
tiny military when Japan attacked us. We had been cutting it since World War One.
I'm pretty sure that America's military in World War II was pretty damn big, and our infrastructure to back it up was massive as well. This is why we were lend-leasing things to the Soviets, to the British. This is why we had a huge fucking army to attack. Like we did most of our work in the the Pacific Theater, whatever, with like our army. It's not like we nuked every single island that we walked to.
Giant Marine Corps island hopping campaign that happened over there, but all of that was spin up that occurred after the war began. It's the same reason that we used Sherman tanks, because we could make them at the drop of a hat. Like literally sneezing was another tank.
Okay, but you understand that's part of like your military then, right? If you have the ability to spin up a massive military in like a year, that's probably part of your military, right? Like, I don't think if we had all that already, like, Japan would have been like, okay, well, we need to stay away from Pearl Harbor because now the Americans can attack us, like, 6 months sooner, right?
Their generals disagree with you. They came out and said America's very weak, and that makes us able to attack them, so we should do it now.
Well, they were pretty damn wrong, I guess. If they were dumb enough to be wrong, then probably... I don't know. I guess I have a hard time imagining that, like, Iraq declares war on the United States and starts shipping troops off, like, over the Atlantic Ocean to come and attack us.
That's probably pretty unlikely. However, the military deterrence of having a large military is there. And now, I don't know that if we pick whatever shrinking of the military you want, but assuming that we did, tomorrow Russia would invade or something. I think that's pretty ridiculous. But there is, by nature of the military being there, a military deterrence.
Okay, so let's back off the military then, because it's not too relevant. That was kind of... So going to the wall thing. So I guess like...
Well, so that's my premise, right?
Yeah, that it works as a deterrent. I guess so. Like when I look at illegal immigration, it seems like the number of Mexicans that have been illegally immigrating here has decreased. I think they're actually on there's like a net negative of Mexicans or Hispanics or whatever in the country or whatever since like 10 years ago. Was it
2008 or something like that?
When the numbers started to decrease. It seems like there's a massive industry getting people here illegally in a plethora of different ways, whether it's illegally by vehicle, whether it's by air, whether it's by ocean. There's also a ton of people that like half the people that are here illegally are overstaying visas and shit. It just seems like the wall isn't a great idea. I've just never really been sold on it. If the wall could be demonstrated to actually significantly reduce illegal immigration, I might be a little bit more in favor of it at that point, although there would still be some things that I would like to try first, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be that effective.
Well, so with the, I mean, clearly, again, no one is actually talking about building a wall on the northern border because we don't have a shit ton of Canadians who show up, right? So address the problem where it lies as opposed to just under the idea. Now, that said, though, there is Razor Fist has a good rundown of the Mexican immigration system, illegal immigration system, in which he talks about that basically the Mexican government can get as tyrannical as it wants, and once they reach a certain point, then we get a large flood of illegal immigration north. And to be fair, right at the moment, it's not even them mostly that are immigrating from the Mexican border. It's a lot of South America who is experiencing all of the financial problems that could be experienced by countries in a lot of places down there. So they are making a trek through Mexico and ending up here, but we blame it on the Mexicans regardless of whether or not it's actually them.
Sure. But I mean, if Mexico seems like it's been improving markedly like over the past decade. I think that's what a lot of people attribute the declining numbers of illegal immigrants to. I guess why not like try to find ways to help Mexico so they can get like more control over their country rather than just throwing up a giant wall and then pretending that problem doesn't exist south of the border. That just seems kind of strange to me.
Primarily because Mexico's not our problem. So
well, but
I mean,
Mexico is our problem because you're trying to sell me the idea of building a massive fucking wall to the south of the border. That makes it seem like that's kind of our problem then.
Well, no. So if we do deterrence-based things, be it a wall, which I will sort of agree that it is somewhat meme-based, but again, it does represent a principle. So if we are saying, Mexico, unfuck your shit, no, you can't use us as a dumping ground for people who get tired of the Mexican government being corrupt, Mexico will honestly probably devolve into a revolution relatively quickly. However, we'll come out greater on the other side.
That seems like quite the extrapolation. I don't think the Mexican government like intentionally dumps people over here or anything. And I'm guessing that a lot of the people that leave are probably people that they wouldn't want leaving, would, for the most part, would be my guess, although I'm not entirely sure. But
in the world of, I have no idea if the Mexican government sits down and like writes a list of like, well, Bob should stay and Joe should go. And I seriously doubt that they do, or that they are actually physically sending people. However, being as it is an outlet, a pressure release valve, for those who say this system is untenable and I don't like it, I can just go to the United States and not fix Mexico. It perpetually leaves Mexico handicapped in the sense of actually getting better.
I guess if there were like more Mexicans coming, I might believe that. But of all the illegal immigrants here, there's what, like, isn't it like 5 or 6 million of them are Mexican? Mexico's got a population of like 130 million people.
Well, so nobody knows. And I say that knowing that that seems like sort of a cop-out, but there is a reality that to say, I know this many Mexicans are here means that we know every single illegal immigrant who's in the country.
Well, no, but we've got like guesstimates. It's like,
it seems unlikely.
Well, it's like 12 or 13 million legals are probably in the United States, and I think almost half of them are from Mexico, I think.
Oh, you're talking 5 or 6 million people, but I would suggest that no revolution in any country has taken even a majority. It has only taken a generally rather small minority who are in fact vocal, who say, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah, I guess. I guess maybe it would be good to go back and establish more core positions. Like, I don't deny that what you're suggesting could be true, but it just seems like so unnecessary, and it seems like such a convoluted way to get things done. Like, rather than working with one of our largest trading partners, with somebody whose economy, our economy, is in some ways dependent on, like, it just seems like that would be so much better than to fuck them and then pray that a revolution happens, and then pray that things get resolved quickly, and then pray that somebody more radical or corrupt doesn't step in, and then pray that this, like, doesn't dramatically impact things like the automobile industry in the U.S. Like, that seems like you're leaving so much more up to chance. It just seems like an irresponsible path.
Well, so the best counter I have to that is that no one really, and myself included, seems to enjoy when we decide to go tell another country how to run itself. And we are notoriously not very good at recreating America and other countries. So
but we're not trying to
recreate.
We don't need to recreate Mexico. I'm not saying we need to go over and Middle East them. But, like, I'm pretty sure there are ways. I'm pretty sure that Mexico's government doesn't like the cartels there. I'm pretty sure there are ways that we could work with the government. I'm not talking about, like, a Gaddafi or an Assad, like, depose situation. I'm talking, like, you don't think there's any way that we can work in, like, a greater capacity with the Mexican government to help them with the cartel shit?
Well, this is maybe just be a fundamentally different view of how the Mexican government treats the cartels. I am leaning towards that they are almost in the sense of Banana Republic, except as opposed to corporations, they work with the cartels because they're, I mean, if they really, and they were, I mean, I guess it depends on what they were willing to do, but if they really wanted to go just effectively declare martial law and get rid of the cartels, they probably could, but they don't. So
yeah, I guess I'm not too sure if that's necessarily true. That sounds really untrue. I don't think. Why wouldn't they? So you're saying that they actually really like their country being fucked up and they really like the cartels being there? Or?
Well, so either the government there is in some way corrupt, which is notoriously true of Mexico and has been for a long period of time, or they are ineffectual, in which case if what they were doing is going, hey, United States, can we borrow, I don't know, the army and help us root out these cartels, we would probably be willing to help them. And that could have happened any time over the past 50 years, but so much as the request has never happened.
I guess, I don't know. I guess, I guess when I think of the problem south of the border, like let me put it this way, if the cartels were Muslims, I think that we would have fixed this problem by now. Like it seems like we're really eager to get involved in all sorts of other places around the world for reasons that we're pretty dishonest with our population and the rest of the world about. But when it comes to Mexico, like just building a wall with one of our largest trading partners, saying fuck it, I hope they figure their own shit out. Like this all sounds incredibly stupid to me. Like so much of our automobile industry, especially, rests on our trade with Mexico. They are a massive trading partner. We've got that huge highway that runs north and south. They're part of NAFTA. Just throwing up a massive wall when immigration is already declining, when Mexico's already improving, and then writing it off as a totally lost cause while we continue to pump money into places like fucking Syria. That just seems so stupid to me. Now, that's a little bit of a straw man. I'm kind of making the assumption that you're pro-Syria there, or maybe you're not, so you would be consistent there. But it just seems like we invest so much money around the world doing shit. I don't know why we wouldn't look south of our border, or why we would say something like Mexico's not our problem, while you're advocating that we build a massive wall because there is some problem down there. That just seems like not a good path forward.
Well, so I don't have I am definitely not an economic protectionist. So by all means, if they want to trade, then go ahead. It's one of the many things I think Trump does wrong is say, oh, you have to buy American. Well, no, you don't. I mean, you can buy whatever the hell you want. That said, though, I am generally against foreign aid. So where, with very, very few exceptions, everywhere that we're pumping money has gone not good through most of all of history. So
wait, what do you mean? We run a ton of programs in places like Africa where we've helped to curb a lot of diseases, and we've helped a lot of humanitarian related stuff where you've seen marked improvement in a lot of countries that we've been supporting.
That's easy to say as an aggregate. However, when we have done things like foreign aid where we hand their governments money, it is notoriously used to increase military and various problems that are going on there that are not in any way related to solving the problems. However, at the same time,
wait, what's like an example of like a government that we've supported or we've tried to support and then they spend all the money on military?
Well, Gaddafi is probably the best one, but I mean, he's gone now. However, I mean, pick one. Niger, we pumped a bunch of money to in I think the 90s, and because we were trying to deal with what is still the pirate situation there, and it all just disappeared. No one has any idea what happened to that money, but the government got bigger and more powerful. So,
I'm not sure. So you're.
Seems like there was more there.
Yeah, I don't know. So because some aid has failed in some places at some point, you think that we should just withdraw all types of aid? I don't know. This sounds like kind of protectionist, no?
Well, so I don't think our government should be doing aid. I think you see absolutely better output when private, basically anything, does foreign aid. There have been, any number of Bill Gates with malaria is probably my single favorite example. That man is pretty well on schedule to cure malaria almost worldwide if he has his way within his own lifetime. And that is better than anything we have done anywhere else in and of itself.
Okay, but these things can work in conjunction. Just because somebody is privately giving aid doesn't mean the government can't do it.
I'm suggesting that the output of the government doing it is not in any way anything that, even no matter how pro foreign aid you are, the outputs of that actually happening tend to be pretty bad.
Gotcha. Well, I need to look up more on this, I guess. I've never heard anybody challenge this point before, so I'll concede this point to you. I'm pretty sure you're wrong about most of what you're saying, but I can't. Like, Niger is like landlocked. How are they dealing with pirates? Do they like?
So there was the what the hell was it? There's the Indian Ocean had a whole ring of piracy for a while that was all back to Niger. That's where they came from. So whether or not it's a misnomer, we said it was the Nigerian pirate problem.
Okay, gotcha. What about places that we have built up, like Japan or Korea, places that had massive government involvement in terms of helping them get established that have become really successful nations? Do those not count, or?
Therein, we get into a debate of who we're helping and how we're helping them. And in the case of, for example, Japan, we have a near 200-year period history of sort of just forcing them to do what we want. And the reality of that situation is we are still there. So if the supposition is we're going to go in and effectively conquer a country and then sort of mandate that they play nice for the next 75 years, then yes, we will get the results we want, but nobody wants to pay for that.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're generally against government aid to other places because you think that it's ineffective, pretty much?
Both that it's ineffective, and I think I'm standing on pretty stable ground when I say we have our own fiscal problems. So if we're going to pump money into a government, maybe it should be, say, our own debt. And I know that financial aid across the world is not immediately going to dissolve the debt or anything like that. But if the argument is this one thing won't fix it, then we will never fix it because journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So if we were going to start putting that money towards something beneficial, I think it should be us. I mean, this is American taxpayer collected dollars. Maybe it should take care of Americans.
Yeah, sure. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Although I guess in some instances, helping other countries also indirectly helps us as well, or at least for somebody like Mexico. Maybe not as much for people in the Middle East or whatever.
Well, sure. I think that is a fairly fair line. If there was going to be something that you could tie very directly without any sort of tenuous hoops to jump through, for example, if the Mexican government called us up and said, hey, you know what, we are done with these cartels. You can call us marching the army down there, whatever we want, but what we are doing is, in fact, paying to clear up their problem. It would still be foreign aid, assuming they had asked us to do it, as opposed to we just went down there and did it ourselves.
Gotcha. I guess I feel like there are so many people that were outspoken in the Mexican government of the cartel, but it seems like anytime that happens, the cartels kill them. I know there was the example of the one lady who, even after she left government, the cartel still found and killed her, even though she was retired.
To be fair, that is another problem. However, seems as though the situation as a whole promotes corruption at penalty of death. So, okay, maybe there is a little bit of chicken and egg problem here, but the result is still the same.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I guess I need to look more into that in U.S. foreign aid, so I have better examples of this. What other Trump policy are you in favor of besides the wall-related stuff?
If he actually ended the Dreamer Act as opposed to what he did, I'd have been okay with that. As a campaign promise versus what he actually did.
Didn't he put it on like a 6-month hiatus and then he's kind of like punting it to Congress?
Yes. So, I mean, he kind of didn't do anything at the moment. So, to be fair, I'll have to see how that turns out before I know whether or not I'm okay with it.
Gotcha. Why are you against that?
My view on immigration is either we need border enforcement, and amnesty says we're not going to enforce the border, at least intermittently. And we need it because we have social programs. Otherwise, people can come here to, the healthcare tourism that Canada bitches about and that various other socialized medicine countries bitch about. The various programs that we have here are reserved for the citizens if we're going to have them. Now, I disagree that the program should be there, and I'm all for ending any sort of border enforcement if we get rid of them. However, as long as they're here, we do need a border enforcement, or we are just paying other people who decide to come here for whatever reason to use those programs without necessarily any benefit to us.
Sure, I don't necessarily disagree with that position. I think that welfare should be somewhat restricted if you're coming here from another place because we don't want to incentivize people to come here to leech off the government. I don't necessarily disagree, or actually, that's my position. I don't disagree with that at all. I guess the problem that I have with the DACA-related stuff, if you were for the removal of DACA because you thought that doing it under an executive act was a dumb way to do it, I definitely agree with that. Insofar as it's done
by nature of that, yes.
Yeah. Insofar as it's providing like a amnesty or whatever, I don't know. Are you in favor of like shipping everybody back or?
I think it is infeasible to like, and I am a huge fan of the Fourth Amendment. So any of these like what amounts to deportation squad ideas, I'm definitely against.
Mm-hmm.
But in the sense that if you're here and I am pretty unforgiving. If you get a speeding ticket and you're here illegally, well, here's your plane ticket home. Goodbye.
Gotcha, sure. I guess when I look at like the big picture, it just seems like it would be So what would your argument be if somebody said, like, let's just make them legal, bring them under the tax base? It's easier to regulate people that we can keep track of by the census and all that shit because they're legal citizens. What would be your opposition to that as opposed to, like, just keeping them all illegal and trying to ship them back as you find them?
Well, primarily that it degrades the legal system for doing so, which is to say, under no other circumstance would we accept this, right? Like, well, I mean, this guy killed people, but like, how about we just remove his felony record and let him go back to being a citizen, and let's not put him in jail.
Well, but I mean, we kind of do this all the time in our legal system, don't we? Like, this guy got a DUI for the 4th time, but he paid a lot for a lawyer. Let's plead it down to like a speeding ticket and hope it doesn't happen again. Don't we kind of do stuff like this?
This is a two wrongs don't make a right to me, because that happens, I also think should be corrected.
Gotcha. I guess it seems like hold on, I'm just trying to think for a second. I understand your position, I guess, philosophically, but it just seems like pragmatically, it just seems like such a bad idea.
Well, so this is definitively a two competing ideas. It is, no matter how you slice it, it is easier and possibly financially better, depending on what happens immediately after everyone is given amnesty. And I don't think anyone has an answer to that question. So hypothetically, it is economically better for, I mean, certainly we're not paying for the plane tickets to ship them home, which in and of itself is expense. So either we go, well, this is easier and we don't want to really, which is a definitive signal to anyone thinking about immigrating here illegally right now, that, well, once we cause them a big enough problem, they'll say, well, it's just easier, throw their hands in the air, and then they'll make us all legal. So you incentivize future illegal immigration by giving them amnesty, by, in fact, weakening the judiciary, or, the judicial system, and saying that, turns out we really don't care that much. So we are going to have any immigration policy. If we give amnesty, what we're saying is, yeah, we don't really mean it.
Why can't we acknowledge that there's been like a massive fuck up with handling immigration, and then acknowledge that just giving amnesty to these people would be a million times easier and more pragmatic and would lead to a lot more positives, rather than, well, we need to philosophically defend the power or the integrity of our judicial system, so we need to take these actions that are like economically worse, fiscally worse, and even on a humanitarian level worse. That just seems like such a huge sacrifice to maintain the integrity of the judicial system. I don't know.
Well, two primary reasons. One, we're a nation of laws. And as soon as we circumvent the legal system, and in my opinion, we already have, and we see negative effects of that basically everywhere. And so if we're going to do that, then we're agreeing to, at this point, more perpetuate the problem than create one. So fair enough to say there already is a problem. Unfair to say we won't be making it worse by doing this. Now, the other reason, again, we can discuss whether or not the American immigration policy right now is crap, and I wholly agree with you. I think that nearly everything we do related to people immigrating to this country is shit.
Okay, so firstly, insofar as DACA, at least the DACA people go, how do you incentivize further? Do you think that like illegal immigrants, when they make the choice to come here, are like planning on being amnestized or whatever, or planning on being naturalized as citizens somehow? Like, that seems like a jump to say that, like, well, if we give amnesty now, a whole bunch of other people are going to flood in.
Well, so I seriously doubt anyone sits down at the dinner table in country X that is not the United States and goes, well, they gave amnesty, so let's go now. Mm-hmm. However, you, in a much softer incentive sense, whereas this is clearly not the main interest. I mean, immigrating to anywhere that doesn't have an immigration policy would hold the same incentive. However, I already think it would be a good idea to go to America. Well, if what they're doing is deporting all of us and that immigrate illegally, they are now incentivized to use the immigration system. Now, again, I think
the current immigration system is unusable generally, so I don't think that any of them will be incentivized to use the current immigration system, right?
Well, so maybe.
I mean, like, it's like I want to say it's like a 10+ year waiting list. I think, even if you can get work, even if you're decently qualified.
I think our immigration system is filled with all the wrong incentives anyway. Like, we hypothetically permit 1 million people a year to immigrate to the US. And the way that we do that is not around anything that we actually want. Like skilled labor is the last thing we actually care about. It's like, well, are you the brother's, cousin's, neighbor's, sister's uncle of someone who already lives here? Yes, well, come on in. Well, at the same 10-year slow rate as everything else. But fixing that is, while related, still a separate issue.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess like some of these issues have to be kind of taken together. Like if you don't fix one, the other one, I can kind of understand some. I guess like for the DACA kids, so even if you could make strong economic arguments and everything for them being here, even if you can make the argument that they're here like not of their own volition or whatever, that none of that matters to you because you're more interested in protecting the integrity of the judicial system.
If the Basically, yes. In short answer. However, if the supposition here is, well, look, what we're going to do, and supposedly this was the original plan of DACA, right? Was that, well, you're here, you're not causing a problem. Let's do any of the path to citizenship things. One, I would suggest that the time to have got this done was 10 years ago now when Bush proposed it, because there wasn't a whole lot of opposition in government, but we did march in the streets and say, no, we don't want that. Now, since we live in a representative democracy, that's why it didn't happen then. If the supposition is that in 10 years the entirety of the country has changed, then, well, let's what amounts to have a referendum on it again. And if I'm just wrong and we should sacrifice the judicial system in the eyes of the people, then, well, I'm wrong. However, what we had done at that point is created something in the judicial system to address the problem.
I mean, it seems like we've done amnesty in the past, like Reagan did, and we didn't have like these massive, like now everybody hates the judicial system or whatever. And then you've got like pardon powers from the president and stuff. You've got the way that people plead things down. Like, I don't know. It seems like our judicial system is pretty flexible. I feel like it should serve. I feel like when you talk about like the judicial system as an entity, it should serve as it serves a function to society. It's not like a be all and end all like institution that has to stand like in some rigid way on its own. I guess
Well, it sort of does.
Okay. I guess
my reasoning for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, my reasoning for that is that if the judicial system in aggregate is intensely fluid, then you never know what crime is. And while that is a very far end issue with degrading the judicial system, the further we go down this road, the closer we get to that.
Gotcha. I mean, I guess I don't necessarily disagree with your conclusion. I just don't buy the I don't buy the initial position that like maintaining the integrity or what you consider the integrity of our judicial system is worth a million other problems. But I guess if we're kind of like at a crossroads there, I guess we can't really come to an agreement. I guess I would argue that like a little bit of fluidity in the judicial system, as long as it remains largely intact, which I think we both agree it would, is probably worth the keeping a ton of immigrants here that do contribute positively to the United States, that do pay taxes, that are documented, that aren't causing troubles or committing crimes. That seems like a really obvious trade-off to me. But you disagree because you think it threatens the any integrity at all of the judicial system.
Personally, I do. The end result of this is that the idea that we are going to keep otherwise law-abiding illegal immigrants is probably the reality of the situation. That said, I don't see an opposition to ending sanctuary anything, because that is the state, city, whatever output of, well, we're just going to let you stay here. And the reality of sanctuary everything comes down to, well, we did catch you for a crime, but we're not going to deport you. And I think if we had stopped there, I don't think Trump would have got any more traction after that, and we would be deporting people that are fairly universally agreed that we don't want here.
Okay. Wait, so are you saying that like you're okay with like sanctuary cities, or did I misunderstand that?
Sanctuary cities are terrible. Okay. So, as is, well, California for being a sanctuary state.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I mean I think we're kind of like at an impasse here. I don't see like some super rigid, or I don't see like your incredibly rigid interpretation of how the judiciary system should work as being more important than the pragmatic impacts of policy relating to it, I guess.
On something else?
Yeah, sure. What's the next thing?
Ooh, The Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, sure. Although I think I might see where this is going, but go ahead.
uh, as a base premise, I disagree with everything to do with the Affordable Care Act and socialized medicine. And I think Trump Care is crap in the sense that it is some sort of softball move to say that it's a good thing, but want to take credit for it.
Wait, what is Trump care?
His proposed bill to repeal and replace, or whatever the hell he was actually getting at, to fix the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, I guess I did, or I might not. Fuck, I'm trying to remember what the Trump care proposal was. Um, yeah, I don't remember it. I guess maybe because the ACA never got repealed, I never looked into it too much. Um,
Well, it wasn't going anywhere, but the have taken the original, just repeal the Affordable Care Act and be done with it. It was proposed as opposed to even Trump's repeal and replace. So,
are you just talking about just them trying to repeal it? Yeah, I really don't remember like a Trump care plan. I feel like I follow this pretty closely, and I don't remember Trump ever proposing like an alternative, like a serious alternative to the ACA.
well, serious is certainly a debatable issue, one way or the other. But a lot of what this came down to is his rhetoric was you need to be able to buy insurance across state lines. That wasn't even actually in the plan. We're going to remove the subsidies.
Okay, so you're not talking about any type of like actual overhaul, just like some basic changes he wanted to make to the healthcare system, right?
These days, it's sort of surviving, and I guess what they're calling, was it No. What the hell was that guy's name?
Romney care is what
Oh yeah, that's years ago.
Yeah.
Ryan Care. There we go.
Ryan
The other
care?
R guy.
Maybe it was a Republican. Okay. Yeah, I guess this is. I mean, I'm pretty much. I think I see where this is going. Where we're going to be at a crossroads between pragmatic versus, I guess, what is philosophically right or whatever. To where I can understand why you would be against things like the ACA on like a fundamental or constitutional level. But then I would argue that pragmatically it has gotten more people insured. I don't remember if it was 10 or 30 million more people or whatever, but the number of people insured increased, and that removing it would probably be detrimental to the American people as a whole. But then you would argue that that doesn't matter, that we're threatening the institution of government and the rule of law and everything as a result. Is that fair? Or what?
Well, I could make that argument. I think that is generally less important in the discussion of the ACA, if only because of, for example, a Supreme Court ruling that it's acceptable that it's a tax. So, I mean, judicially, I think we jumped through a little bit of hoops, but it's as settled as it's going to get there. That said, the having insured these people didn't necessarily in any way, shape, or form get them care, certainly didn't get them care that they couldn't have otherwise gotten. And most
wait.
definitely,
What do you mean by that?
Which?
Insuring people
Doesn't insure care?
Yeah.
Given and understand that the Affordable Care Act is the 50% line to this, but given a sufficiently high deductible, I will insure the entire country for $1 a month. I will give you health insurance and I will cover everything, but your annual deductible is $1 million. So the only time that I ever pay anything out is once you have already spent $1 million of your own care. And the reality is what we have seen with the affordable care insurance markets is those low cost plans, the ones that got all of those people insurance, have $10, $12, $15,000 annual deductibles. So the result of these people getting insurance is that they have insurance that only if you have like cancer is it really covering your care. Until then, what you have is them using more out of pocket, which is effectively the same thing that we had before for the vast majority.
Gotcha. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree that large deductibles exist, but isn't that kind of the point of health insurance? I guess I thought that the point of like health insurance was to get you care for catastrophic events or to help you like manage like lifelong conditions, things like diabetes type 1 and stuff like that. It wasn't so that you could go to the doctor like every 2 weeks and get an x-ray for free, no?
Well, while that may have been the idealized intent of everyone who is promoting healthcare for all, the pure and simple fact of the matter is that there are at least a couple studies out currently just about the Affordable Care Act that the quantity of times that people go to the doctor or the emergency room for non-emergency situations has exponentially increased since the Affordable Care Act. So while we might hope that this had resulted in people with diabetes being taken care of over the long run, there's little evidence to say that that was truly increased, because we already had things like Medicare where people could file for disability under these things, and they already were. And what we're actually seeing as an output is that Johnny Skin Knee means an ER visit instead of peroxide and a Band-Aid.
So wouldn't it be better to approach this problem from another way, like whether it's through, I don't know, some type of proactive program to educate the public on how to properly use their insurance or something like that, rather than saying because some of people are abusing it and going to the hospital too much, we need to axe it completely?
The output difference between the two. I mean, there is a reality that if you don't have health insurance, what you do is not go to the hospital because that shit's expensive. And if you do have a serious problem, we were already subsidizing you. And there's a really interesting chart on the cost of healthcare since the invention of the Medicare, Medicaid programs and their expansions about how the cost of healthcare has exploded, because once you are on them, you can in fact go to the hospital for anything and it's covered. However, we were already doing things to cover those people. And the trotted out instances like the lady who was a realtor, like I got breast cancer and it bankrupted me, is to some degree, if you're a realtor, yeah, I am heartless in going to say that if you've been a successful realtor for 40 years, you probably, if you wanted health insurance, should have bought it.
Well, it seems like America is the only country with these problems where we have all these people declaring bankruptcy because of healthcare related things. Why is the United States the only country that can't do it?
Oh, there's no such suggestion as from me that we can't. I think the question is, do we want to, and I don't mean just with money, pay for the socialized medicines or any individual mandates or any of the government-run healthcare, because there is a serious problem with countries that have these things with outputs of care. And I'm most familiar with the NHS, if only because I've been looking into it recently, but they do not have good health outcomes in relation to us.
Can you give me an example of a health outcome that's inferior in these other countries that have socialized medicine compared to the United States?
Sure. You mind if we stick with the NHS?
Sure.
Okay. So he is, I think, everybody's favorite.
Wait,
right?
I'm sorry. Wait. What did you just say?
Infant mortality.
Okay.
I think that's the favored one to go with, right?
Well, at least for developing countries, it's an important one, but there's a lot of different metrics to use, but sure.
My primary issue with, for example, the NHS and infant mortality is that if you go to the CDC and the NHS and you pull their statistics for it, what you find out very quickly is the NHS breaks up what the US calls as infant mortality into 5 different statistics. Mm-hmm. And then they named one of them infant mortality, and they compare that to all 5 of their statistics combined. When you combined all of them together, they have a higher infant mortality rate. I'd have to go get the video. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's something like 30% higher infant mortality rate in the NHS, under the NHS, than there is under the American system.
Okay, so without looking up, I guess, this single metric, because there's a lot of other ways to test it, why is it that like every index I can find ranks the United Kingdom's healthcare above the United States? Do you think these are like bias rankings, or?
Well, so I think there is a lot of, we would call it accounting games if it was money, that get played by the NHS, right? So I think the single easiest one is maternal mortality. So in the United States, we discuss your chances of dying for 1 year after giving birth, right? And this one I'm only using because it's easy, because they only break it up into 2 stats.
Okay.
UK has the same stat, or at least the one they compare against us. Well, the UK has broken it up into 2 things. So you go to the CDC, you get this number. It's every mother who has died for something related to childbirth for 1 year. When you go to the NHS, they have the statistic under the same name, but they're only counting the first 42 days.
And you're telling me that, like, when I don't know if it's a WHO who does it, but for the people that make these healthcare index ranking systems, they all get duped by this and they're not aware of it, or?
They seem to be. I mean, I know that's a pretty big claim for me to make, but there is.
When I look up, like, if I look up the relative under 5 mortality rate, it seems like the United States is ranked 5 here, and the UK is ranked 12. Are you saying this is just because the United Kingdom plays with the numbers, or? This
It'd
is
be
from
under
the
5.
This is from the WHO. The following is a list of the OECD countries by under 5 mortality rate per 1,000 live births, as published by the WHO. The United States comes out at rank 5 here, and then the UK is down at rank 12, with the United States being almost 50% higher in terms of infant mortality than the UK.
Infant mortality, I know off, well, in the sense that I don't remember the number, I know off the top of my head because I stopped and made a video about it. And so what they do is they take out, you know what, let me just pull up the list in the goddamn video and stop talking without numbers. But they break up, you know, like, for example, SIDS is a really great example. We count SIDS in our 1 year infant mortality rate, right?
Okay.
They do not. They break it up and give it its own. SIDS is this other thing, and they because of that they have a lower number. And I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but they absolutely, when you go through their numbers here, is God damn it, this is the wrong part. Hold on. So infant mortality in the U.S. is 5.9 in 2013. It's only the statistics I had to work with. So,
Okay.
or at the time that I made this, it was the statistics I have to work with. So they break this up into the UK breaks it up into still deaths, neonatal deaths, and then an infant mortality statistic.
Okay.
What I did is I added them all together. Then I got their total live births for 2013, and their deaths per 1,000 is 10.7. The US's was 5.9, which makes you 71% more likely in the
Wait,
US.
Okay, hold on. I'm actually curious. I'd like to expose a little bit. Okay, so you're saying the United Kingdom's under 5 mortality rate is actually 10.7 for...
They're
because that would put them at like the 3rd worst in the world, according to the World Health Organization. And you've discovered this somehow, but the United Kingdom was able to hide this from everybody else that makes these indexes for ranking healthcare.
So, sure. I know that's a big claim to make, but I do actually go and sit and break this down in a video. To be fair, I think I misspeak a couple of times, but the numbers are all still there, and the links to the NHS are available. And I'm not, there's no links to Breitbart, there's none of that. It is straight to the NHS and to the CDC. So,
Gotcha.
I don't think they're the you know, like 10th worst in the world. My assumption would be that other people are playing these games too, so that number is probably unreliable. However, going through each and every one of these statistics and aggregating all of these numbers together does in fact take time. So I don't want to just necessarily say that, you know, Canada's outcomes are worse than ours, because I don't know that. But I do know with the NHS that they are playing this numbers game.
I guess it just seems... Or, I mean, I understand. I would have to go watch your video. You can understand me being a little skeptical that you've discovered
Absolutely.
like some numbers game that no other
Right.
ranking system has discovered when healthcare is one of the most important hot topic issues in the world, right?
YouTuber with 100 subscribers makes a substantial claim. I'm with you. I would be skeptical of my claim too. Which, to be fair, is why I made the video and provided the links that I did. The death rate for mothers is the one that got me started on this. You know, and so it's in the same video. So I figure I'll just pull numbers from there to talk about it in a you know, actual numerical sense, as opposed to. So what they do is they break it up into 42 days or less. So their death rate for mothers within the first year is 9.02. I want to say this is per 100,000. And they America's is 17.3 per 100,000. So if you go get their late maternal death rate, which is 42 days to 1 year, that's 14.12, which gives them a total of 23.14 per 100,000.
Okay, actually, wait, hold on. Okay, I'm actually curious. Can you start seeing the numbers? I want to explore this now. Let's do it.
Sure. Give me just a second. Let me just grab the article.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so our goal right now, I want to find the true. So what number are we discussing right now? We're gonna discuss the true, the mother mortality rate, or
if only because it's the one that I'm on right now. Yeah. So maternal mortality in the U.S. and the U.K.
okay, it's called maternal mortality rate. Is that what we're looking for? Is the annual number of female deaths per 100,000 live births, right?
Yes. Discord, because I suck. So I don't.
And you say that you came up with, what was the number that you came up for the United Kingdom?
Let me grab the thing. 23.14.
Okay. And then how did you, and then what was your methodology for coming up with that number?
CDC, in chat, I'm just going to start linking you some stuff.
Sure thing.
Just want to make sure I'm linking you that. Yeah, that's definitely. CDC did a study, or not the CDC, goddamn, the NHS did a study on the subject and produced this stupid little pamphlet right here. Second, let me link it to you.
Where are you linking this on?
Under general voice, it looks like.
Okay, hold on.
Let me.
Did you do these same numbers for the United States?
So what I did is make sure that we were comparing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So in the United States, I checked our list of categorical reasons for including you in this number, which seemingly we are comparing the same thing. Now, maybe somebody's playing numbers on the back end, but according to cdc.gov, we're not. So maybe, but supposedly no. We publish this as a whole 1 year, and the list of things that get you on this list are the same between the NHS and the CDC. The stupid little pamphlet thing there. Page 11 has... no, it's not page 11. God damn it.
And so you said that pregnancy-related mortality in the United States came out as what number for you?
17.3 in 2013.
Okay.
Page 9, there is a list of the definitions that get you on this list in the UK, and it's maternal death, death of a woman while pregnant or within 42 days of the end of pregnancy from any cause related to or aggravated by the presidency or its management, but not from accidental or incidental causes. So if you're pregnant, get hit by a car, no. If eclampsia kills you, yes.
And in the second thing you linked me, where does it have the breakdown of?
The second thing is on page 9, you'll get the definitions, and the tables for it are, it looks like 14, but it's sideways, so that's not it.
So like when I look at this table that you've linked me, table 2.1 on page 12, it says that in 2011 to 2013, the total direct and indirect deaths, the rate was 9.02. Which seems to be consistent with the CIA.gov, which ranks the United States as worse than the United Kingdom on this. And then on your CDC website, it had the United States at 17.3. How are we getting the United Kingdom all the way up to like 24 or whatever?
Hold on, just a sec. Let me find the table. So again, the go to page 9 thing,
Uh-huh.
because it gives you that. There it is. Page 9 gives you that maternal death statistic, and then at the bottom of that it says late deaths occurring between 42 days and 1 year. And what we are producing as a statistic in the U.S. is maternal death plus late death in the equivalent of our statistic. So we're doing the whole 1 year. They're doing the first 42 days. The table, so I can just direct you to a page number, but
Do you have a definition that the CDC or somebody uses for the United States maternal deaths? Like,
so it is on that page. How does CDC define pregnancy-related deaths? For reporting purposes, a pregnancy-related death is defined as the death of a woman while pregnant or within 1 year of pregnancy termination, regardless of the duration or site of the pregnancy, from any cause related to or aggravated by the pregnancy or its management, but not from accidental or incidental causes.
okay, so that sounds like it says within 1 year pregnancy or pregnancy termination, right? Hello?
Yeah, no, I'm still here.
Oh. So so you're saying that we include do you think that 1 year is also like included for the pregnant women? Like once you give
Uh,
birth, you're saying that they track the woman for I, I guess I would have to spend some time digging through this. This is like a really, really incredible claim that like you right, you understand?
yes.
I'm not trying to yeah, because
No, no,
you're essentially saying that you've uncovered something that literally every single index on the planet has missed, and every single person arguing about this has missed, like all over the world, that nobody realizes that there's this massive difference in the definitions of tracking like infant mortality. Like
no, I'm with you. It's a big claim. And I think I would be disappointed if you just believed me.
um all right. I guess I'll do some digging into it later to try and reconcile. I mean, I am curious, I guess. Um
Let me find this damn table. Late deaths. There we go. On page 18 of that document, the top is the late deaths on it, and 9.02 is, I mean, it's the same number, right? And it's down to adding the late deaths in. It's what is it, 13.79? It looks like.
yeah, sure.
No,
I guess I'll look into this, and then we can reconvene on it and talk about it later. I guess, sure.
Okay.
And so you think that similarly, like if you measure all of those indexes, then that all put the United States behind a ton of other countries' social health care. You think it's all because the social healthcare countries all play games with their numbers, and the United States doesn't?
Uh, to be fair, that is my working assumption at the moment. And I do mean assumption because until I sit down and go through statistics, I don't want to make that a claim. It is entirely possible that, I go through these and I get to Canada, and Canada is just purely better than us. I do not know until I look.
Gotcha. Okay. You want to move on to the next topic? Your mic cut out. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Or we
Good
can
on
cut it here
guns.
and we can reconvene at a different point if you want to talk again later. There's a lot of stuff I want to look up. I'm just kind of curious in terms of some of the things you said, and then we can talk about it later if you want.
Sure.
Okay, cool. I disagree with you a lot philosophically, but I mean, you're pretty well spoken, so I thought this was going to be a huge shit show, but you're pretty intelligent, so I appreciate it.
Uh,
Yeah, do you have any like final words or parting thoughts or anything?
um, Other than self-shilling and that this went pretty well, and I'm pretty well pleased with the outcome as it stands.
All right,
I
well,
don't think
cool.
so.
Thanks for the conversation, my dude. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, man.
Fuck. All right, I'm not gonna ever do any of these conversations without having an outline ready to go again. I'm never, ever, ever doing this again. This is what we've learned from this conversation. I will never do it. I'm making a promise. I will never do another one of these conversations without having an outline ready to go. Holy shit. I don't know what to do when I feel like when people are like just spewing bullshit at me, but I don't have like the background information to call them out on it. And then it's like yeah, no, fuck that shit. It's way too retarded. I might as well go back to talking to like flat earthers or some shit if I'm gonna do that. Read the chat during the debates. I can't because you guys all say like a million different retarded things, and it's hard to tell like what's true and what's not true. Mike Spam, I think most of your points were irrelevant. Is he against presidential pardons? Amnesty wouldn't weaken the... So presidential pardons have nothing. He could very easily say something like, well, the president has the limited capacity to pardon people. That's not something that's going to massively weaken our judicial system because not everybody can expect it. There's a million arguments that you can mount against that. The presidential pardon was totally irrelevant to his point of view. Amnesty wouldn't weaken the judicial system. He's just using words he doesn't know. Legislation granting amnesty would be fixing an executive overreach, arguably, not attacking the judiciary. If you asked him to elaborate on this point, he'd just flounder. He displayed no understanding of what he was talking about, none of the key points in the arguments. It seemed like philosophically he was really big on rule of law, right? So if you say something like you're having legislation coming in to fix... executive overreach? How do you argue that it's executive overreach to say that some people are illegal immigrants? How is that executive overreach? Yeah, Vandal, I think so. Oh, here, Mike's time. I'll drag you in. All right, what's up? Wait, so how is this executive overreach when you're talking about things like amnesty?
So the executive overreach is DACA allowing them to stay, period.
Sure,
that's
but,
the argument.
Yeah,
that's
sure. Well, but he's talking about amnesty as a general concept, not necessarily hyper-related to DACA.
Exactly, which is why I bring up the presidential pardons, because what you needed to ask him and to get him to try to commit to was, if something's a crime, it can never not be a crime.
Well, I don't know if he would necessarily agree with that because I thought about this because I could bring up the example, well, what about people that have done marijuana, now marijuana is being made legal or whatever, for things like that? Do you think the judicial system should be completely inflexible and never allowed to change? I'm pretty sure his response to that would be, well, there's a process for changing those things, and we would need to go through that process in order to maintain the integrity of the judicial system.
Right, but you would need to ask him to define what integrity of the judicial system is.
So I think
because he never made that leap.
Sure, but I think by integrity of judicial by integrity of judicial system, I'm pretty sure he means just like the fact that we have laws, those laws matter, and those laws will be enforced somewhat equally across the United States and not arbitrarily. I think is kind of what his argument would be, no?
But again, this goes back to the idea of pardoning.
Yeah, but pardoning is a specific power granted to the President of the United States that he is allowed to exercise should he want. Like, pardoning can still exist in a system of judicial integrity, where the only way to get out of a certain crime might be to get pardoned by the President. That's still baked into the system. That doesn't hurt the integrity of the entire system. And he might not even be for pardoning. But even if he was for pardoning, like, I don't think that threatens his argument.
If he wasn't for pardoning, you can dunk on him really easily there.
Why?
It's not a hard argument to make. But then the next step would be to bring up when Obama commuted the sentences of the people in federal prison for marijuana possession and ask him his opinion on that and delve deeper into where does he believe that power should stop. That's the line of questioning to go down.
I guess it
Be-
just feels like you're trying to find like whatever arbitrary line we end up drawing for him, it's going to be way, way, way farther than anything I would draw. So I guess I just don't see the point in that line of questioning. Like if eventually he gets to some point where he's like, this is okay, and then this is where I would draw the line, that's going to be way, way, way farther than where I'm at with amnesty, right?
Right. But you need to get him to draw a line. And you need to get him to explain how his line functions in the real world. That's how you attack positions like that.
Yeah, but I feel like he would have a really easy time defending it. So the problem when you argue with people like this is that they're willing to accept that they're making pragmatic trade-offs for a philosophical position. Like he already said as much with the wall. So I think I understand what you want me to do. You want me to say, like, okay, well you see this, this, and this, right? And you go, okay, well yeah, I agree with that. And then I would go, okay, well look at this problem, and this problem that's caused by your new position, right? In an attempt to show him that he doesn't agree with his own position. I think he would agree. He would go, oh yeah, I totally accept that these are things, and I think that these things should definitely happen. He would like agree with it. He would go, yeah, I think that people that did marijuana or whatever shouldn't have their sentences commuted or shouldn't whatever, like because they did break the law. I think he would be consistent and he would just say that. And then at that point, all I've done is like solidified his own philosophical position, right?